Our next speaker is Governor's Chair at University of Tennessee and Oak Ridge National Laboratory. He is also a research professor at Case Western Reserve University. He is a fellow of the American Chemical Society, a fellow of the Polymer Science and Engineering Division, fellow of the Polymer Chemistry Division, ACS. He received the distinguished Herman Mark Scholar Award in 2013. In 2018, he was elected National Academy of Science and Technology Philippines. And he recently has been appointed to the World Economic Forum Advanced Materials Council. He is the editor of MRS Communications and Reactive and Functional Polymers. He has held a number of visiting professor positions, including Waseda University in Japan. His group does research in polymer materials, nanocomposites, colloidal science, 3D printing, hybrid materials, and ultra-thin films towards applications from smart coatings to biomedical devices. He is very passionate in mentoring students and helping other countries in their STEM programs. Let us all welcome Professor Rigoberto Advincula. Gobet, I think you're still on mute.
You're right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kay, for that correction and also for that generous introduction. First of all, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Sa Philippines, it's almost 9 p.m. here. I'm actually in Knoxville, Tennessee now. And this has been, of course, something that I am looking forward to in terms of listening. And really, the past 2 to 3 weeks has been so special listening to our colleagues with PAASE and the various expertise and new things I have learned, you have learned, something positive, especially with this COVID-19 situation we are all in. And like what Kay mentioned, I had recently moved to University of Tennessee and Oak Ridge National Lab as a governor's chair. In fact, I'm a Oak Ridge National Lab group leader with the Center for Nanophase Materials, but I was with Case Western Reserve University for 8 years. So what I'm going to talk to you today deals with 3D printing and Industry 4. Well, you may want to say, why now? Why talk about this matter? Well, I will be ending this talk describing how my partnership with DOST and especially Secretary De La Peña is here, will be a bright story for us to look at today. Starting with my engagement with UP many years ago through the Balik Scientist program, the ERDT fellow, and various things I did with the Institute of Chemistry. This is always a bright spot that I look when I think about my engagement in the Philippines and as a PAASE member as well. So let me share to you 3D printing. Why 3D printing? What is additive manufacturing? How can we tie it with the future of our country? How it ties up with innovation, entrepreneurship, engineering education, and so on. In fact, one of the things I did with PhilDev at that time was to help imbue the curriculum with CHED on technical entrepreneurship. I pushed this, and in fact, I wrote the first curriculum that became the model curriculum for CHED. This was almost 4 years ago during my heavy involvement with PhilDev. This is tied up, of course, with what people say Industry 4.0 or sometimes innovation nearing, where we are looking at digital manufacturing, data analytics, different types of material classes, digital economy, distributed manufacturing, and so on. And you will see why this is such a very timely thing for the Philippines to have gotten into. Back in 2016, I was invited by the World Economic Forum to give a talk on the future of 3D printing and advanced manufacturing. This was in fact held at Dubai. So I've never been to Davos, Switzerland, but they actually had another meeting with the World Economic Forum in Dubai. That's where all the techies went, not the rich people. Anyway, I discuss here why this will revolutionize many things we looked at in terms of tissue engineering, space manufacturing, bio-inspired design, and so on. Well, today you can go to a lot of makerspace places. Actually, many initiatives on the Fab Labs with DTI, and of course, I'll talk to you more about AMSEN. In fact, any family who can invest on a 3D printer worth about 10,000 pesos can get into digital manufacturing. That is, one is able to use that CAD design, digitized image and convert it to an actual three-dimensional object through a number of methods. So for example, one of the projects I like and research areas that are quite inspiring in nature is that you can actually take nature, the design that's inspired by nature, and convert it into biomechanics or different types of engineered objects, which actually gains inspiration from nature, not only with the design, but even with the material itself. My first introduction to 3D printing was actually 1997 when I was doing my postdoc at Stanford. I heard a talk on two-photon stereolithography, where they were actually making objects at the 100 nanometer scale level or resolution. So for example, I was impressed with this image of this three-dimensional woman on the scale of a hair, a single strand of hair, okay? Or this model of the Notre Dame. And this was all done by photopolymerization. Now, these days, actually, one of the hottest industries is in the area of prosthesis and orthesis devices. Dental industry is being revolutionized. Dental practice is being revolutionized by 3D printing, as well as the design of implants, where the density of the bone can be simulated or changed depending on the infill ratio design. And so one can link biomechanics and the need for custom-made or personal health care. In the area of tissue engineering, different types of tissues can actually be stimulated, if not towards development of artificial liver, kidney, and this can actually be accelerated by bioprinting or even 3D printing of tissue and stem cells directly on patterns and with the use of growth factors. Now, closer to industry, a lot of people are looking at 3D printing of parts, prototyping for the aerospace and the automotive industry. That is new designs and new materials that can replace metal alloys can easily be tested or manufactured toward high performance. Another area that's growing is in the area of construction. So actually, this is a growth area that not only is used by the military, but also even for the building of hospitals or emergency response, where the construction of different types of civil structures can be made in a record time. And this, of course, uses materials like cement or geo materials that can be 3D printed. Now, for those of you who are art lovers, there is actually 3D printing there as well, merged with artificial intelligence. So if you look at this self-portrait by Rembrandt, Rembrandt is a famous Dutch master. A company called ENG Barings and Microsoft teamed up together with Delft University to simply answer the question that if Rembrandt were alive today, what would his painting look like? And what they did is they captured as many paintings by Rembrandt and did data analytics. I say that by looking at the symmetry, the type of paint, the different types of subjects of painting, and then compiling this in an algorithm, they were able to come up with an image, a painting actually. And this is not inkjet printing. This is actually 3D printing because it uses layers and multiple layers of pigments and paints, everything that is digitally laid out. And actually they came up with this painting. So this is actually a modern Rembrandt that was produced by AI and 3D printing, okay? So that answered the question, you know, can we revive Rembrandt? Yes, in his painting today using 3D printing. Now, closer to manufacturing, 3D printing is making a big difference in how they make tools, molds, jigs. These are terms that are very familiar to the automotive, aerospace, both industries, military industries, and so on, simply because these are very expensive projects requiring lots of investments, capital investment, formative manufacturing. These days, the cost and time reduction can be as much as 70%. That means a lot of things that can be accelerated in manufacturing can be done today using digital manufacturing and 3D printing. So why be engaged in 3D printing? Well, what we traditionally call as traditional manufacturing is what we call formative or subtractive manufacturing. Formative manufacturing will be things like injection molding, casting, and so on. Those are made, are available to make thousands and even millions of pieces. But what digital printing or 3D printing does is you're able to make very complex parts in a relatively short time. However, they are not made for high throughput manufacturing. But if you can have the value chain of complexity, high performance, and costs, and even distributed manufacturing, that's where it comes in that it comes with a value chain of its own towards complexity, high performance, and as I said, it's not made for high throughput manufacturing, but that is one of the problems that can be solved or may be solved by the use of 3D printing farms. So some of you may be familiar with these terms, FDM, SLA, SLS. These are simply acronyms or abbreviations that speak about different techniques in 3D printing. And that means you have various materials from polymers to metals to different types of hybrid materials that can be shaped and programmed digitally with a printer. There are many problems though with 3D printing, not to least some of the things that can be optimized through better CAD design, material selection. And this is actually the subject of research, and that's what we do these days. Try to understand and optimize 3D printing. So this, you can see in a typical FDM method, you actually lay down or lay up materials in a directional manner, meaning that directionality can be both a weakness and strength. So in this case, a plastic is simply melted and then fused or deposited layer by layer in material until you get the desired object. Some methods involves a laser that sinters powders, either metals or polymers, that results in a three-dimensional object based on sintering. Or in the case of the previous example I showed with lithography, this can be done by photopolymerization with light on a resin material. And in fact, this is one of my most favorite techniques because the resolution and sometimes the speed of printing is in this clip process is very high. So this is very good for manufacturing objects that are very close to what would have been injection molded to begin with. And this is how you produce some of these high resolution, high fidelity parts in a very short time. Another technique that is a favorite of mine is called viscosolution printing. This is actually how we 3D print um, flowing materials like paste, like chocolate, like glue, like cement. So anything that flows can actually be 3D printed as long as they have a thixotropic behavior. And there are many others, including binder jet, combinations of UV curing, use of resins, and so on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about these different techniques. Another type of 3D printing that is important in industry is metal 3D printing. This is because metals are typically forged or molded or welded, and they are expected to have a high performance, typically used in high temperatures and pressures or engine components, etc. These days, you can actually have 3D printing farms. These are built for high build volume and high production. Okay. And of course, the linking of digital technology means that scanning, imaging, different types of digital accumulation can be converted into a 3D printed object simply by converting that CAD file into a sliceable and printable STL file. Um, what about polymer materials and 3D printing? So I'm a polymer chemist, and that's my specialization. Uh, Although plastic sounds like a bad word, it's not. If you look around you, there's plastic everywhere. And that means 3D printing of plastics, high performance polymers have a very high value in terms of digitization in manufacturing. So for example, just to highlight the material choices, it's a combination of cost or the thermomechanical properties. And most commodity polymers do not have the tensile strength. On the other hand, high performance polymers like polyether ether ketone is expensive, yet they can replace metals. In fact, there's a race to 3D print many different types of materials, from ceramics to polymers to metals. And this will go into many industries, many applications, from the medical industry to oil and gas, automotive, aerospace, consumer electronics, construction, and so on. Okay. I'm going to dive a little on the research that we actually do, because I'm assuming here that there's a lot of people who might be interested in composites and uh, natural materials. So as a chemist, we look at nanomaterials as an additive that can improve the thermomechanical properties, the barrier properties. So when I talk about that, that simply translates to higher performance or um, what we call high value added products. So in our group, and this was something that I started about 4 years ago at Case Western Reserve University, we are involved with the use of various types of 3D printing methods to use graphene, silica, nanocellulose, different types of nanoclay to improve the properties of plastics, rubbers, epoxy thermosets, and high performance polymers. Okay. So what am I getting into? I am trying to actually focus now on why the Philippines is a good source of a nanomaterial called nanocellulose. So abaca is not a high value industry. It's very abundant in the Philippines. Yet when you unlock the structure of abaca, and I've studied it for many years, you actually derive a nano material that is of high value because it has a very high alpha crystalline content. And not to mention many types of fibers that can be derived in the Philippines beyond abaca. So when you break down a plant fiber, you're able to isolate these fibrils and break it down into crystals that can be separated as whiskers or fibers. Upon isolating these nanofibers, and I think some of you might have heard of the talk given by Jerome Palaganas, one actually of the students who trained in my lab at Case Western. We can use this as an additive in 3D printing. So for example, in a technique called SLA, we can mix this in various ratios, and then we can 3D print them using this method to arrive at a high performance resin material that can actually be used for prosthesis devices, as well as different type of materials that can have high tensile stress, compressive stress, elongation, and total yield strength uh, much further than the material without that resin. Another material that we studied early was the use of thermoplastic polyurethane. So this is a very high demand industrial polymer used in many industries. And what we did is we were able to take this polymer that is either used for car parts or biomedical applications and improve their properties based on the addition of a nanomaterial called graphene. So in this case, graphene oxide was modified and then blended with thermoplastic polyurethane, resulting in high tensile strength, elongation and break, and various types of high performance metrics that can be used for improved TPUs. Okay, so here is just showing how we studied this type of properties using different types of testing methods, including compressive strength, tensile stress, and flexural strength. So let me then go towards Philippines engagement. After all, that is part of my title. After giving you all this technical background, after extolling all the advantages of 3D printing, I want to emphasize why the Philippines has a big break in helping and leading this type of science and engineering. So for many years, I've been a host of many scholars from DOST, whether it's through ERDT, through funding directly from DOST, and sometimes from CHED. I have been training a lot of Filipino PhDs. In fact, to count, there's about 25 of them. A good half of them has returned to the Philippines. A number of them have gone on to have very productive careers here in the US. For example, Jerome and Napo Level Palagana spent a year in my lab doing 3D printing, and they were able to bring that technology and start their own company. A number of these Filipinos, Joey and Al and Briley, are in the US working for big material companies. For example, here I have Jill, who also stayed in my lab for a year and went back to UP as a professor and started their own 3D printing program for undergrads. And other students that were supported by various projects through the OST. Now, some of you might recognize John Ryan Deason, or simply Kokoy. He stayed in my lab for 6 months and went back to the Philippines to establish his own 3D printing center at Bataan Peninsula State University. And is one of the regional centers heavily invested by DOST to set up his own 3D printing center in Bataan. And a number of these students as well who have trained with me, who have since gone back to their own universities and started their programs. So I'm starting with this because this partnership with DOST and the Philippines actually starts with training. It's all about people. It's all about equipping Filipinos to be the best that they can be, given opportunities to train with me in the best setting that I can provide for them, encouraging them to set up and start their own careers. Whether they go back to the Philippines or start here in the US, I know in my heart that these are long-term investments, and they eventually, like me, would invest back in the Philippines. I've been in the US for 31 years. I got my degree from UP, yet many, many years I've been drawn back and come back to the Philippines to reinvest, to bring what knowledge and what things I've gained here in the US and to help the next generation. And some of the things that I did, and this was through FieldDeb, this is through Case Western Reserve Universities. I visited many universities in the Philippines, from Ateneo de Davao, to UP, to Adamson University. I visited several high schools, and I was bringing US students with me. For example, through this program, Engineers Without Borders, we actually set up a 3D printing workshop in Davao City, and also visited several high schools and was encouraging them to set up their own 3D printing labs, even in the high school level. And I believe that is happening not just through our own initiative, but through many initiatives by DOST, local high schools, state high schools, and DTI, for example. So last year, AMSEN was started, and this building was inaugurated early last year. The AMSEN really is a culmination of that training, that engagement with DOST, where we simply work with Secretary De La Peña and Undersecretary Guevara to propel the Philippines to a top position in additive manufacturing. So AMSEN really is a collaboration with my group and DOST and many other parts of DOST to establish a center that will house not only the latest equipment in 3D printing, but actually the experts. So the experts trained in my lab as well, but at the same time, multifaceted workshop training and different types of projects. Too many to report now, but one of the things that I'll show you is how how they responded to the COVID-19 pandemic, and be an inspiration to many. So for example, this building is ongoing, and they plan to finish it by October 2020. And some things about AMSEN, we are actually at this point second only after Singapore to establish our own additive manufacturing center. We are above many of our peers in establishing a first 3D printing center of this scale. And this was actually a collaboration between several groups and agencies at DOST, from ITDI, MIRDC, MP Shared, and it's composed of two main projects led by Blessy Basilia and Engineer Lisa. And this funding is DOST's investment, the Philippine government investment to be ahead of the curve in additive manufacturing. And now it's bearing fruit in terms of many different projects related to aerospace, electronics, automotive industries. But I think the more important investment will be in the training of people. So for example, they responded right away through some of my engagement too, to provide not only PPEs, but actually the tools, the prototyping that went into ventilators, molds, and different types of production units that can upscale the production of PPEs. We were one of the first to work with the Philippine plastic industries to 3D print molds that were used right away to produce many PPEs. And a lot of the team members were actually engaged with different groups in helping build prototype ventilators. But this is just one of the success stories. They can, and you can probably ask Dr. Engineer De La Peña and other colleagues at DOST on what they've been doing since. In fact, I just published a paper, this just came out, and it's open access, on the role of additive manufacturing for the COVID-19 response. And actually, this was a paper that I co-authored with one of the DOST scholars, Brian Dizan, where we made a review article on what has been going on with additive manufacturing and our COVID-19 response. So as you can see here, the roadmap and the scale by which this investment will be years productively engaging Philippine industries. I predict that the biggest impact of this AMSEN will be in innovation and Industry 4.0 in terms of rapid prototyping and tooling for many parts of the Philippine industries. And what is needed right now is people, training. Universities should be engaged, doing research, doing different types of training from undergrads to MS, PhD related projects for their thesis. After all, there are many advantages that can be unlocked from traditional manufacturing towards digital manufacturing, more complex designs, geometries, and the tools that are needed to propel the Philippines from traditional manufacturing. So I'm actually
I think we lost him.
Yes, I think so. No, he's still around, but I think the microphone cannot be heard. Okay, he's back. Corbett, you're still on mute?
mute.
Okay, thank you. Now we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Sorry for that technical difficulty. So here, I think I last showed here, Oak Ridge National Laboratory is host to the MDF. Although I'm not part of the MDF, this is one of the long-term engagement we can probably, again, foster through collaboration.
Yeah, Corbett, can you share the screen again? I think we lost it. Thank you.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay. So Oak Ridge National Laboratory is host to the MDF, Manufacturing Demonstration Facility. Early last year, I brought the staff from DOST to tour, engage with scientists and engineers there to learn more about digital manufacturing and how it can be used to accelerate prototyping, tooling, and usefulness in many industries. So, for example, at the background here, this is actually a 3D printer that can 3D print an aircraft wing. This is how big this printer is. And this is the inside of that printer. Here, for example, you can see a tractor or caterpillar part that was 3D printed at the facility. And here, for example, is a resurrected Willys Jeep, 3D printed. So they're no longer produced now, but they can be resurrected from an old design and 3D printed as shown here. And I will not tell you which parts are 3D printed, but more or less you can see some of the frames and the important parts of the body that was 3D printed, and then of course finished by painting. So I'm almost done. This is a list of other types of modes and sectors that will be influenced by additive manufacturing. I predict that many parts for tooling, for assembly of automotive, electronics, packaging industries will be impacted by 3D printing. Healthcare, distributed healthcare, marine industries, defense procurement in industries. That is a very interesting challenge because many of our tools, parts, aircraft, military equipment simply needs parts that are missing, which can now be 3D printed. And then they can reuse or use some of those old equipment and even recycling. So high value adding, rapid prototyping, distributed production. This is an opportunity that we should not waste. We should fully engage 3D printing, additive manufacturing, because these are some of the value chains that can lift our industries and bring us to the forefront of digital manufacturing. So in summary, what I've shown you are the interesting directions by which 3D printing and new materials are taking us, the current state by which the Philippine industries can be uplifted in terms of high performance materials, new types of digital manufacturing, and its impact on many industries to come. And I simply want to thank the Philippine government. I want to thank Secretary De La Peña, Secretary Guevara, Undersecretary Guevara for their confidence and their partnership through the years in this investment that will pay off big time. I'm very confident it will. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions later.
Thank you very much for that, Gobet.